I have to be behind the podium in order for the microphone to pick up my voice. So you're not going to be able to see me out in front. So I apologize.
That's okay.
You will be able to see our students. That's awesome. So students, thank you for coming today. Thank you for being part of this panel discussion. We have 3 of our wonderful alums who are coming back to share their stories about their careers and how they got there, and words of advice for you as you kind of start on your journey. So some ground rules here. What we did was we collected all of your questions that you submitted, and we kind of clustered them around themes. And so panelists, what you'll see is that for each question, there's really probably about 4 questions or so that I kind of clumped together. And so I'll read all of them. You don't feel compelled to have to answer all of them, but just generally the theme that those questions kind of go around, that's what I'm address. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And students, if you have questions, just raise your hand. I'll call on you, and then I will repeat your question so everybody can hear, and then we'll go and ask our panelists that question. Okay. All right, well, let's get started. So the first question then is just simply for introduction. So panelists, if you could go and just briefly provide an introduction for yourself, your name and your current job title. And in a little bit, we'll get into what your roles are, responsibilities, all those types of things, the more detailed stuff. But at this point, just name and position. So Lucas, let's start with you.
All right, awesome. Well, good to talk to you again, Don. It's been a while. So my name's Lucas. I graduated St. John's in 2017. Immediately after graduation, I went to Regis University in their Doctor of Physical Therapy program. So Regis is based out of Denver, Colorado. So currently I am a Doctor of Physical Therapy working as the clinic director of an outpatient sports and orthopedic clinic in Denver, Colorado. And yeah, so I'm a staff therapist treating as well as clinic director. So I have some admin roles as well.
Excellent. Steve, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Steve Sharikas. I graduated in 2012. And then after that, I went on to the University of Minnesota, did a graduate program there in which I graduated in 2014. I'm currently a performance specialist, which is just a fancy name for a strength conditioning coach, which is sort of a trend in this field that we can get into. Yeah, and I've been a strength coach now since kind of graduating St. John's. So it's been, what, 11 years now?
I'm Kate Banovitz. I graduated in 2018. I went to grad school at WashU, so Washington University in St. Louis, for occupational therapy. So I received my doctorate in occupational therapy in the end of 2021. So I've been in the field for like 2 years. I've actually changed many jobs in the 2 years, so I can talk about that later, but I'm currently in San Antonio, Texas, working as an occupational therapist.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, so second question is, now tell us about your roles and responsibilities, as well as the type of people you work with and the types of environments you work in. And so what I usually do is kind of go reverse order, and then we'll kind of popcorn around after that. So Kate, if you want to go first.
Yeah, so I work at a hospital here. It's a Methodist Specialty and Transplant Hospital. I work as a PRN, so I go in whenever they need me, pretty much. And it typically is like 2 to 3 days a week. I also do some teletherapy for an outpatient pediatric clinic back in Minnesota. And then I work for a nonprofit as well. It's a nonprofit for kids with disabilities in sports. So we lead programs, practices of all different sports in seasons. So my typical workday looks very different depending on the day. I'm either in the hospital or working with kids typically.
Steven.
Yeah, so our gym is located in just the Twin Cities here, just in Edina. And so we work with mostly hockey players. We are sort of a specialty hockey training facility. And so because of that, that's really our population. We have a few athletes that aren't hockey players. It's not that we are specific to hockey players, but it's all as coaches here have a background in hockey. So we get hockey players all the way, from 10 years old all the way up into professionals. And then through the gym, we have contracts with different schools. So we work with a school down here called Breakaway Academy, which is like a sort of specific hockey school, where they do have sort of hockey training built into their daytime at school, which is kind of unique. And so we go help them out and help them run some of their dryland training that they do at the school. And then as well as that, we work with Breck High School. So personally, I go there Monday through Friday in the afternoons and work with, all sports at Breck High School there. So it could be anywhere from middle school athletes all the way up just to, seniors who are, looking to play college sports, or even seniors that are just, enjoying the ride as a high school athlete and want to get a little bit better in the weight room. So really it's all athletes through my gym, but it's, a huge range of kids and abilities. And so, yeah.
Hey, Lucas.
All right. So yeah, I'm obviously a practicing physical therapist. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm treating a full day, treating about 40 hours a week. But also in my role as a clinic director, I've grown into a lot more admin tasks. So helping more on the scheduling side of things, billing, learning more about the healthcare field in general, and practicing in that role, which has been really nice because it definitely wasn't something that I was interested in initially going into grad school. Over time, I've also done some continuing postdoctorate work, which has let me do a little bit things more like mentoring and teaching. So working with new graduate physical therapists, as well as helping teach some continuing education classes as well. I had the opportunity to do a residency, which is a 1-year postdoctorate program where you get the opportunity to kind of step into that next level, just beyond kind of being a staff practicing physical therapist. A typical workday for me is, treating throughout the day with blocked off admin slots. Out here in Denver, it's a pretty big orthopedic sports population. So treating everything from weekend warriors who injure themselves skiing to current high school athletes, as well as in this setting, we get a really unique opportunity to work with kind of niche populations. So things like people with TMJ or jaw pain, vestibular, older folks working on balance. So we see a lot of different things on a day-to-day basis, which keeps it really interesting.
Great, thank you. Next question. What is the best part of your job and why? If you could wave your magic wand and change some part of your job, what would that be and why? Does your job ever get repetitive? Is there something that nobody told you about your career that you wish you would have been told earlier? So let's start with Lucas.
All right. So the best part of my job is I'm practicing with people who are motivated to get better, and I'm very client facing, which keeps it interesting. So days don't get very monotonous. That was one of the questions as well. Does your job get repetitive? And I kind of spoke to that earlier, that as a physical therapist in like an outpatient setting, you're seeing everything across the spectrum, ages, diagnoses, different types of surgeries and things like that. But yeah, the best part of my job is that, I've never woken up and been like, oh crap, I have to go to work today. So there's always something new. There's always something exciting when it comes to being kind of an outpatient physical therapy. One thing with any job is that, any job in healthcare you have to consider is compensation and productivity, I think. So in any field, everyone wants to get paid more and do less. But oftentimes you get paid less and you have to do more. So you really have to fight in this field to get paid for the services that you provide. And I think if there was anything that nobody told me earlier that I wish I would have known, was I honestly probably would have gone back and taken a year off between my undergraduate and going to grad school.
Yeah, I think the best part of my job is it's kind of it's a few different things. When you're working with like a younger population, you're looking at 6th graders, 5th graders, 4th graders. they can kind of be all over the board. There can be some days where they're just extremely unfocused. They don't want to be there that day. They don't want to listen to you, whatever it might be. And then there might be one day where it kind of clicks for them, and they're like, all of a sudden they start to put pieces together, and they're like, oh, this is making me better. Like, I feel better in my sport, or I just feel stronger than my friends, something like that. And they start to kind of figure it out, and their coordination starts to come along, and things start to look better. And that's kind of a really fun moment when you see the pieces get put together there, um and that happen. And then the other part, to kind of piggyback off Lucas there, is it's a great job. You get to move around all day. You get to have something fresh and new every day. It's not repetitive at all. Like, you can have the same kind of similar schedule where, you might work with the same groups on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you might work with the same groups on Tuesday, Thursday, but every day is going to be different. Kids are going to be kids, and they're going to have a different day and a different attitude, and they're going to have just a different level of energy that they bring every day. You don't know what's going on in their life or what happened at school that day. And so really, you might be doing the same workout on a Tuesday afternoon that you did last Tuesday, but in reality, that workout could go completely differently, and you have to be able to attack it with a different set of your coaching skills. So it doesn't really get repetitive in that sense, as long as you're open to, how you're coaching and what you're doing on a daily basis. If I could change some part of my job, it would probably be the hours in which you're coaching, and that's something you have to be prepared for before you enter the career, is especially if you're working with college age kids or high school age kids during the school years. You have to work around their schedules, right? You don't get to have that nice cushy 9 to 5 where you get to come in and you get to get home and have a whole evening. It's like you need to either be at the gym maybe at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. so someone can get their workout in before they go to school, before they go to do an internship or something like that, right? And you might have to be at the gym until 8, 9 p.m. Like this whole past summer, we had a kid who was a college athlete, but he wasn't going to go pro, and he knew that, and he had an internship with a really good company, and he had to be at his internship at 8 a.m. So he was in the gym every day at 6 a.m. and that was my responsibility to be there. So that looks like getting to the gym at 5:45 or even a little earlier than that, and getting things prepped and ready for him. So just like being ready for the hours is definitely something that you'd have to be ready for. And I wish someone would have told me that, because that's not something I considered necessarily in college. It's not a huge issue, but it's definitely, if I could change it, I would. But you get used to it pretty quick. And so it doesn't become like a make or break thing. It's just, something to consider.
Great. Kate.
Best part of my job, I think, for every population is really just seeing them succeed and progress and be able to do what they need to do, especially in the hospital, seeing them. We, as OTs, we get to have the lucky job of giving them showers after weeks of not being able to shower. And so even just like seeing the smile on their face or feeling so much better after a shower is the best part of my job. And then with kids, just seeing them being able to go to school, succeed in school, do well, get the tools that they need in order to improve their grades, and then also improve their social interactions and be able to learn. If I could change something about my job, it would be the documentation. I would rather be with the people than spending time documenting, but of course that's part of the work as well. And then my job does not get repetitive, mostly because I'm doing all different types of jobs, but also, like they were saying, a lot of differences in the clients or in the patients, and then every day people could be in a different mood or something else going on, different diagnoses too. And one thing that's something that nobody told me that I wish I knew earlier, I think just like be open to the different careers and really shadow and find, one thing maybe would be like find a mentor. I think is a big one that no one really told me about, but I wish I would have found a mentor earlier so that I could talk to them and kind of find my career path with them.
Excellent, thank you. And I'll take that as a time to put in a plug. So XPD office has a program called SEAM that will connect you with a Benny Johnny alum that is in your future career field that you can meet with on a regular basis, more sustained interaction, and potentially develop that type of mentor relationship. So again, if you have time, stop by the XPD office, ask about the SEAM program. Trista will give you some more information in class on Friday also about how to get connected with that. So, okay.
Don, can I jump in really quick here?
Absolutely.
Awesome. I just want to like emphasize Kate's point there. Like, I cannot emphasize enough that finding a mentor is so important. Especially like in the strength and conditioning field too. Having someone to learn from, like you can learn everything you want in school and really understand how the body works and all the different functions and all the different responses to what you're going to give them as an athlete. But if you really want to work, especially if you want to work with elite athletes, you have to know and you have to have the experience behind. And so having that mentor from the get-go and from an early start is going to pay absolute dividends. And then like a lot of positions in the athletics world are filled by your network and by who you know. They don't just take like random applicants. It's sort of, hey, I know someone that told me about an open position. You can send a resume in, and then that person's going to vouch for you, and that's how you end up getting the position as opposed to just randomly selecting. So like a mentor is probably the number one thing if you want to go into the field of just like learning from them, learning how it looks like in real life, and starting to build that network.
Perfect. I'm going to put in one more plug then. LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn page, I'd recommend that you get one set up and get it up to date. There are Benny Johnny alums out there working in your field that you connect with. And again, create these connections so that you have people that know you that are out in the field. That is going to be huge down the road, okay? Especially in the strength and conditioning field, because it is largely, you have to know your stuff, but it largely is who you know and the connections that you have that will get you your jobs. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so I'll take a quick pause and look out in the audience. Does anybody have questions at this time? Okay, and we're going to continue on. All right, so what knowledge, skills, and qualities are critical for success in your field? I don't remember where we started or left, so I'm going to start with Lucas. Why don't you jump in on that one first?
All right. So I think the biggest kind of quality that you have to have in a job like physical therapy is being a people person and really being a great communicator. You can learn skills. Anyone can go out there and learn skills, take an education. You find a great mentor and they help you learn. But one of the things you can't really teach is the soft skills, and building that therapeutic alliance with your clients and with your patients is an integral part of being in any healthcare field. So I would say that is the first quality that I look at in anyone, like a prospective hire or anything like that. In regards to knowledge, it's the foundational stuff that you start with in undergraduate. You learn your anatomy, you learn your movement systems, your kinesiology. So having that really solid foundation of the movement system is what will really prepare you for success in grad school. I think it's really beneficial to have a background as, an athlete of sorts. It's definitely not a requirement. In physical therapy, not everyone's practicing with athletes or people trying to get back to sport. But I think having at least a background on the demands that a sport can take on an athlete is really important.
Great. Let's go to Kate.
On top of that, I think another big thing is just collaboration with others, whether it is your clients. When I think of my kiddos, my client is the whole family. So I have to collaborate with the parents too, also have good communication with the parents as well as the kid. And then also collaborating in the hospital, being able to talk to nurses, doctors, other therapists as well. So collaboration. and teamwork.
Steve.
Yeah. You know, obviously all your baseline knowledge is super important, right? For a strength coach, you still need to know all of your physiology and how everything's going to work. But I do think communication is probably the most underutilized and underdeveloped quality, I think, when you learn to be a strength coach. At least when I was going through school and I was starting to learn to be a coach, it was all the emphasis was on read more research, find out exactly what works so you can make that person 1% better, because you know the environment is always changing. You know, we're always getting new research and we're always finding out that something we did 10 years ago could actually be done better, and sometimes now it's like something we did 2 years ago could be done better. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you're doing if you cannot connect with the athlete. The athlete needs to come in and they need to trust you wholly, and they need to say, hey, I put my full faith in this coach, and that coach is going to bring me to the level I want to be at. So it's being able to be that people person, to communicate with that athlete effectively on a day-to-day basis so they can fully trust you. And that's where most of the gain is going to be. And that a better communicating coach, one that has a better relationship with their athlete, is going to get more out of their athletes, even if their program is scientifically not as good as another coach's program that is not a good communicator. So that's probably like the biggest quality. I'd also say like having general business skills is really important. Unless you're working in like a team setting, if you're a strength coach in the private setting, you need to know like kind of general business. That's not something that I thought of or took a lot of time in during my undergrad or my grad program. I just kind of jumped into the field, and then throughout the years I've moved in through a few positions, and now I'm like, I wish I knew how to plan a marketing strategy, or I wish I knew kind of business 101, and having to learn that on my own is been helpful now. And I wish I would have knew that sooner, and then I could have maybe been in, who knows, you know, something grows faster or something like that. So don't ignore the business side just because it's not in your science field, basically.
Excellent. And again, I want to just pick up on a theme for the students in the room. Right now, we are working on empathy, compassion, and client-centered care. What all three of our panelists have talked about are those themes. Getting to know the person that you're working with, having them know that you truly value them, that you want to understand them, that their goals, their values, their perspectives are really important. That builds that trust, that builds that motivation on their part to succeed. And so if the more you can kind of work on those skills, the better off you're going to be as you move up into your career. All right, so next question. How did you get to where you are now? In your response, address both how you decided that this is what you wanted to do for a career and the education and experiences that led you to where you are now. So let's see, I think let's start with Steve.
All right. So I've had a few different positions, but to just bring it back, I've been an athlete my whole life. And I was just like a very mediocre athlete. When I was in high school, I ended up having a couple surgeries. I had an ACL repair and I had a micro discectomy in my low back. And so I could probably attribute those to like being a high school athlete and having coaches tell me, just get in the weight room and go lift some weights, and not really ever having some instruction. And so, you know, having awful form, doing things the wrong way, doing too much weight, whatever it might have been, I kind of fell apart. So wanting to stay in athletics and wanting to be able to help those out so they didn't kind of fall into the trap that I fell into, I kind of naturally found the strength conditioning field. And then through just like having Don as an advisor and having other great staff at St. John's St. Ben's, it really helped me learn that it was a great career path for me and something that I really wanted to do. When I was at St. John's, I got to do a on-campus job as like an assistant strength conditioning coach, in which we would like help out the St. Ben's athletes. And that was a pretty cool experience for a college student, for an undergrad student. And that was a big driver into being like, this is definitely the path that I want to go down with my exercise science degree. But so where I am now, then I kind of came out and I started working in the private sector at a hockey training facility. We were a big facility. based out of Blaine. I did that for 7 years or so, and then from there I moved on and worked with a professional hockey team in Sweden for 2 years, and so I got to move overseas and learn what it's like to work in a team setting, which is very different than the private setting. And that ended largely due to COVID and all the complications that kind of came with COVID and how it upended everything. So I found myself back here, and then worked in a non-athlete setting. I just worked for a gym based out of Minneapolis and St. Paul here, and then did some personal training with them, did some group training with them, still worked with athletes with them as well, but it wasn't like a fully athlete-centered type facility. And so that was a good experience and gave me some different background onto, there's more out there than just athletes, right? And if that's something I like to do. But ultimately now in my role, I'm with a very kind of boutique hockey training facility that caters to high-end hockey players and elite hockey players in the state through just the way we coach and the equipment we have available. And we sort of attract not groups, but we attract individuals that are really, really striving and looking to play Division I or professional. So
Excellent. Lucas.
So yeah, pretty similar there. I grew up as an athlete, went to St. John's and played a sport as well. And just in my time in the training room and in the weight room, I saw how all the staff there interacted with the athletes, and I knew that's something that I wanted to do. So took the pre-physical therapy route and immediately started applying to schools during my junior and senior year, and was able to go straight from St. John's, move to Denver and start school the following August. During school, you do a lot of different clinical rotations that get you exposed to a bunch of different settings. So I was doing a clinical rotation at a outpatient sports clinic in Denver and ended up getting hired there after graduation. So I've been working with this company ever since. It's called Rocky Mountain Spine and Sport. There's a couple different locations around the Denver metro area, and started about 4 years ago as just a staff therapist. And over the past few years have been able to move into some more leadership positions and kind of expand my knowledge of the field and start to serve in a couple different roles.
Great. Kate.
Okay, so my journey to where I'm at now is not what I had imagined in high school. When I went to St. Ben's, I thought I was going to be pre-engineering math major. And then I think it was after my freshman year, we had to apply for the health science major at that time. So I applied and I was like, well, if this is where I'm supposed to be, then I'm going to do that. So I got into that major, and from there I started shadowing health fields, health careers, and I've always worked with kids. I babysat my whole life, so I knew I wanted to work with kids, and I shadowed at an outpatient pediatric clinic in St. Cloud. I don't remember the name, but after I shadowed an OT there, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So after that, I started applying for schools. I think it was my junior, senior year for OT. And then while I was in school, we also did rotations, and I did a rotation at a hospital and then an outpatient pediatric clinic. So that's kind of what made me go into those two fields or places. And then yeah, so that's why I'm here. Yeah, I'm working in hospitals in pediatric settings.
Great, thank you. Gentlemen, again, look out to the students. Any questions at this point? Okay, seeing no hands go up, we're going to continue on. How difficult was graduate school compared to CSB SJU? What was the most challenging part of your graduate school experience? How did you balance school and life? So Kate, let's start with you this time.
I think St. Ben, St. John's really prepared us for graduate school, at least. Compared to my classmates, graduate school was not difficult. maybe it was the work that we were doing, but I was really prepared from undergrad. So it was not as hard as I thought it would be. And the most challenging part, I think, was just trying to figure out what type of occupational therapist I wanted to be, mostly because it's such a broad, occupational therapy looks different in any setting. So just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what I liked, and trying to get those experiences while I was in graduate school was probably most challenging. How did I balance school and life? You kind of get into your routines, kind of like undergrad. In grad school, it was like doing the same thing, making sure I meal prepped on the weekend and having time for friends, joining volunteer experiences, joining groups and clubs within school too.
Great. Let's go, Lucas.
All right. Yeah, I will echo Kate. I felt incredibly well prepared for graduate school. Really had my study habits nailed in just from going directly from undergrad. So I felt very prepared relative to a lot of my classmates. And it was obviously challenging, but I felt like I never hit a point where I was like, oh, wow, I don't know how to do this. I've never done anything like this. So time management skills and everything like that, I felt like I went in with a really good grasp of everything. One of the more challenging parts of physical therapy and most healthcare professions is that there is a lot of gray. Like there's nothing that's right or wrong. And so coming from a biology background where, there's a lot of memorization, reiterating facts, in physical therapy, it's a lot of gray. There's based on the person in front of you, there's a multitude of things that affect whether or not they're going to get better, they're going to get worse. And so you really have to learn to kind of embrace the gray, and you're not always right. You're not always wrong. You can try as hard as you want and you might not get someone better. And so that was definitely frustrating coming from, I don't know, a setting in undergrad where I felt like I was always able to kind of live up to what I expected of myself, that you're not always able to make the effects that you want.
Great, thank you. And Steve.
Yeah, I'm just going to continue the echo here. Graduate school was, I wouldn't say any harder than St. John's, St. Ben's. The foundation I had and the study habits that you have to build to kind of have a good experience at St. John's, St. Ben's really set me up for graduate school. Graduate school for me was very different. So my undergrad at St. John's was very science heavy. Being an exercise science minor at the time, because I didn't have a major, and a nutrition major, I was trying to really push all my classes towards being a strength coach and towards studying kinesiology as a graduate program. And so I had a lot of different like science-based courses. And so having that background was really helpful when I got to grad school. It was all about those pieces of information, those dots that were created at St. John's, St. Ben's. It was sort of learning how to connect those dots with theory and with experience and things like that. So it was not necessarily science heavy where I was learning, all the new muscles again and, deeper dive into the nervous system or whatever it might be. It was more, how do you take that scientific piece and how do you apply that in real life? And so it was a very different kind of learning. And for me, I found that, not super, super challenging. It was just, you had to stay up on it and you had to keep, learning and studying just like you would have done at St. John's, St. Ben's. So it wasn't too much harder, to be honest. Balancing school and life was definitely different. Yeah, I was working full time while also going to grad school. So it was more just like a little bit drawn out program. I could have done it a little bit quicker. I know I had classmates that, crammed everything together in like a year and a half. And I took like 2.5 years just because I couldn't have certain classes during the day or during the afternoon, depending on what my work schedule was. So I had to just play around with things and just balance things. And then from there, it's, you learned how to study, you learned how to manage your time. So continuing those habits through grad school.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question. Tell us about your experience at CSBSJU. What was your major or minor? Which courses or academic experiences were most meaningful to you? Is there something that you did or did not do that you wish you would have done while you were here? And let's shake it up a little bit this time. I'm going to go Lucas first.
All right. Yeah, so I was a biology major and a psychology minor. I applied for the integrated exercise physiology program or whatever it was called at that point, and I didn't get in, but still kind of knew that I was going to go the pre-health route and did the whole pre-physical therapy route. Had to take a couple extra courses that weren't necessarily included in the program just for prerequisites for grad school, if I remember correctly. So there was a bit more I had to do in that regard getting into that, but I'm sure, some of that's been ironed out as the pre-health programs have expanded. I participated, I played football, so that was a big piece of building some of that knowledge. And like I said, just being in the training room environment was something that really motivated me to pursue something in that field. Something that I wish I would have participated in. Steven said like he was able to do an on-campus job as a strength and conditioning coach, and I think that would have been really valuable. Kind of because in school you do have to do a lot of clinical rotations while you're still taking classes, and I think that would have been a valuable experience having to balance those two. And I think also, like Steven said, is just being a bit more diligent about making relationships with people in your field, working to find mentors early, doing small things like LinkedIn, following up with somebody after an interview. A lot of those things can go a long way in fostering those relationships.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's go, Kate.
I was a health science major with a psychology minor, and I think all those courses really helped me, were really meaningful to me. I remember health and fitness, I believe, was a class that I really enjoyed. And then my nutrition classes, I also found meaningful just because for all my kids, a lot of it's feeding, so talking about nutrition with them. And then also in the hospital, I work in a transplant hospital, so they all have to change their diets after they get a transplant, so talking to them about that. And something that I wish I participated in, I think more like shadowing, finding a mentor earlier, and then like going out in the community more maybe, and finding a job within my field.
Great. Steve.
Yeah. So my major at St. John St. Ben's was nutrition, and at the time, exercise science was just a minor. The program wasn't as robust as it is now. So it's super cool that you can all have an exercise science major for sure. But I had like a very general nutrition major. It wasn't a dietetics track. It wasn't some other track. It was very general, and that allowed me to really fill out my exercise science minor with as many classes as I could. So I took anything I could that was sort of physiology based, whether it's exercise physiology. I took anatomy and physiology, it was a full year class. I had like the first version of it, which was like a 1 semester, and then I had the second version of which was a full year, and that was really cool. And you had the whole cadaver that you got to go through a dissection with, and really good experience just to learn kind of the deep background of the body and muscles and everything that goes along with it. I also took a nutritional biochemistry class, which was a class that I still fall back on the information to this day. It was extremely difficult and took a lot of studying, but it has been very, very beneficial for my whole career. Just really learning how nutrition works in the body and what it sets off and the energy pathways, and having to do all of that so many times that it's drilled into your head so that you can still recall it, 11 years later is nice. Yeah. So those were all super, super meaningful to me. They were very, very helpful. I was lucky to be able to have that on-campus position where I got to work with the athletes. And that was a really, really good learning experience for me as well. I had 2 internships between my junior and senior year. One of them was with the hockey population, And then consequently, after I graduated, I actually got hired by that company. So that was really nice to be able to do that. And then meaning I had a job right when I graduated. And then another one was with a professional cycling team. So it was like a totally different style of strength conditioning, and cycling is a very different sport than hockey or really any team sport is. And so just the demands on that and seeing how that works during a race was really, really cool. But having access to internships was super important, I think, and really helped me launch my career. There's something I didn't do is I wish I would have looked for more opportunities earlier, I think. I did it between junior senior year, but maybe there was something I could have started between sophomore and junior year, in terms of career development wise. I wish I would have paid more attention to the business side and just taking a couple business classes with some free credits that I might have had, just to learn a little bit there. I know I touched on that earlier, but now the position I'm in, we have 3 coaches at our gym. So we're a super small business. We've been very successful in the 2 years we've been around, but we're just very small. And so we all have to do different jobs that are outside of just coaching, whether it's coming up with a social media campaign or whether it's coming up with pricing packages and learning how to manage signups and everything on a website, and, organizing calendars and everything. Like, there's a lot of other tasks that go along that's not just coaching, and having a little bit of background in a non science related field would have been really nice to make that an easier transition.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm gonna look out to the audience one more time here. Any questions? Okay, we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm actually gonna skip to question number 9, which is, what recommendations do you have for current Benny Johnny students who are interested in your career field? What can they do to prepare for the career? What can they do to make their graduate school application stand out? What type of patient care experiences did you get prior to applying to graduate school, and how did you find those opportunities? So let's start with Lucas this time.
All right. So I think one of the biggest recommendations I have is, to really practice your interviewing. One big piece of advice that I got was to really research who's going to be interviewing you. So you kind of have an expectation of who you're going to be talking to, what types of things you might talk about to stick out. I had interviews at Regis as a Jesuit university. So talking to them about Benedictine values and things like that, I think stood out, and kind of catering your interview to who you're talking to as well. So really work on researching your interviewers for sure. In terms of a grad school application, actually just kind of cycling back to another question, but I wish I would have done more research at St. John's and St. Ben's. In Don's kinesiology class, I know that we had a big research project, and I know that previously there were some students who had done it and actually gotten published. And so I think if I could go back, I would have taken that a bit more seriously and tried to get that on my resume. Because I mean, if you can have that, that's going to make you stand out a significant amount. Yeah, in PT, you got to do your usual shadowing. So try to shadow in as many different fields as you can, outpatient, neuro, hospital-based. And are there careers for students in your field? Yeah, there's a growing population and there's a declining workforce. So we're very often looking to hire. So yeah, there's very many careers in physical therapy available.
Excellent. Let's go, Steve.
Yeah. Biggest recommendation I have is build your network. I know we've kind of touched on it multiple times now, but it's keep reaching out, and start reaching out if you haven't, but just start reaching out and keep reaching out to as many people in your field as you can, and just ask to buy a coach a cup of coffee or ask for a meeting. You'll find a lot of strength coaches are more than happy to sit down and talk to you about the field, talk to you about, experiences, talk to you about how they got started, how you might be able to get started. And you never know when just a simple, 30-minute conversation over a cup of coffee turns into a phone call 6 months later because that person was impressed with just you reaching out, and they say, hey, I heard of a job opportunity, or maybe they have the job opportunity. I know I'm more likely to hire someone that I know and I've had just an organic conversation with than an interview, than I would hiring someone after just an interview with them, right? So getting your name out there, getting in front of coaches, offering to help and volunteer. When I was a young coach, I remember I spent four years just volunteering my time. When the Minnesota Wild would have training camp, they would need people to come down and just help run a test, right? And so whether it was counting how many chin-ups an athlete did or counting how many push-ups they did, they just need help, right? And now all of a sudden you are, in that person's sort of network and they know who you are. And that actually came back to me like 8 years after I was down there. I was having a conversation and the guy who was the strength coach with Minnesota at the time was like, oh yeah, I remember you used to come down. And so those conversations go a lot longer than you'd expect. So definitely just build your network right away and grow your network right away. And that's going to be massive in terms of getting into the field, helping you with your career. In terms of graduate school application, it would be offering to go above and beyond if you have sort of a grad school interview or if there's an internship at the school as well. The University of Minnesota has an internship program. And so if you're part of that internship program, I'd say the school is more likely to add you to their graduate school as well. But, obviously your grades and everything, having the right classes for the program you want. But on top of that, doing research. I had at the time one published research article, which was really, really cool. And it was a great experience I was able to do at St. John's, so like taking advantage of that. And I had done and written up one or two other papers as well through different classes we've had. So having that background and being able to put that on your resume goes a long ways, especially if you're applying for like a PhD type program or even a Master's of Science where you have to write a thesis and have a project along with it. So those types of things are super important.
Great.
Kind of going off of both of them, building your network, lots of Bennies and Johnnies everywhere. And everyone that I've talked to wants to talk to you, wants to help anyone out. So use the Benny and Johnny network. You'll never know where they'll be too. I'm down in Texas and there's Benny and Johnny's down here. So just finding those people, reaching out to them. I doubt anyone will say no to talking. And then one thing for graduate school applications, find something that you're passionate about and kind of go with that. It doesn't really have to be part of your field or what you want to go into, but it's showing that you're passionate about something and that you care about something. So talk about that.
Excellent. Thank you. So students in the room, I'm going to pick up on kind of three themes that I heard here. Benny Johnny Network, very real, very strong. XPD, you can go and ask to get connected with a Benny Johnny alum that is in your particular career field. They have sheets of paper that have questions for informational interviews. You don't even have to come up with your own questions. Set up a Zoom call with the grad that's in your area. Start asking the questions. Usually the conversation just takes off and you don't even have to worry about what's on the piece of paper. But you have that available to you. And the last thing is the interview piece. XPD has practice interviews available. They have coaches, the student coaches that will give you feedback on your interview and ways to improve your interview skills. Take advantage of these resources. They are amazing. They are here for you. Okay? Awesome. So we are basically out of time. We got just a couple of minutes left. So let's do this. Let's give our panelists a round of applause here. Thank you very, very much. So students, I think you are free to go at this point. You have a wonderful afternoon. And panelists, again, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to our current students. It was wonderful. It was enlightening.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Thanks, Don.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.